Etepu Namaste. This is Kasak Ma Keperu here with another broadcast for you. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about how white people and black people think. And I'm going to get a little bit into this. So you need to follow along with me, but I want to apologize beforehand because my throat is really dry. Maybe I should get some water. Give me 2 seconds here. Okay, there we go. All right. Sorry about that. So, hey, listen. So, typically I'll go online and I will search out, some videos that I find that are interesting and that warrant viewing. And I come across a lot of videos by a lot of so-called scholars who are in the New Age movement, some in the conspiracy theory arena. And some are really good, some are really bad. But, consistently the one theme that I see is this kind of underlying thread throughout all of them is that most of these well-established scholars who tour the country or tour the world actually to packed seating stadiums always end up saying something that kind of like, in my view, disqualifies them as scholars and leaders in their area. And the reason being is this goes back to Gandhi. And many people don't know is, I was one of the first individuals coming out online talking about how Gandhi was a racist, and he tried to start a race war between Indians and African people. And he looked at African people as lower class and not on the same level as Indian people. And, I did a whole video going into that because I said there's a racial totem pole, how, white people are at the top of the totem pole, at the very bottom you have black people, and in the middle you have all the other races, Asian, Indian, and so forth. And what happens is the ruling elite, the oligarchy, takes the resources of the planet and distributes them out unfairly, unequally to these different races of, let's say, countries, and then watch as they fight over resources. And this is where you'll get many of the races trying to be honorary white people, and now, of course, they can't do that. Many Indians are darker than the Africans. So what they do is they just try to vie for a higher position on the racial totem pole. And many of them become taskmasters or watchdogs for the white ruling elite. And it is on them to prove that they're going along with white supremacy or colonialism for the expansion of the United States under the guise of democracy, right? So that's basically what, that's all about. And it also encompasses something very important, which is a certain pathology, which is a type of whitewashing. And we see this a lot in Africa and Nigeria, where a lot of the women there are using bleach, skin lightening cream or bleaching cream to make themselves look lighter and whiter. And it's happening here in the United States as well, where you see African-American women are wearing hair that doesn't belong to them, that mimics the hair of a white woman, and bleaching their skin and putting contacts in their eyes. That represents a certain type of pathology, So, going back to what I was saying before, here I was watching one video in particular by Max Igan. If you don't know who he is, he's a really interesting guy that does these very creative videos where he basically talks about the 5G, the grid that's coming online, or AI, artificial intelligence. And he gets really detailed in that. He talks a little bit about Palestine and Israel and things of that nature. Well, I got an opportunity to watch an interview he did, and I think it was a young Muslim woman was interviewing him, and the subject was Donald Trump, right? So basically, long story short, she cut to the chase. She asked him, do you think Donald Trump is a racist, And what it was so interesting to watch as Max stumbled on his words, went around everything, and purposely didn't answer that question. Um, his response was, well, I don't really know what Donald Trump is up to. He's a wild card and things of that nature. And it was a very simple and direct question. And anybody who's been on planet Earth for the last year or so knows without a doubt, or even let's say going back to when Donald was, before he was president, it is no question that Donald Trump is a racist. Okay, that is not a question. You know what I mean? And the mere fact that Max Igan couldn't come out and just say, yes, he's a racist. So are many people in the Democratic and Republican Party. That's how he's able to get to that position. And so are many people in America racist because they voted for him, and he used race baiting tactics and techniques to appeal to the lowest common denominator, to stimulate that base of people who are anti-Obama. I mean, we can go into a whole discourse on that. But listen, what I'm saying is that here you have, and I'm not picking on Max because I do enjoy his videos, but when you can't answer a straightforward question, an obvious question like, yes, he's racist, then that tells me that you don't have the solution to what's vexing the world. You don't have a solution and nor do you understand the problem of what's going on in the world. I mean, he talks at this like this, the 5G grid, that we should all not use credit cards and try to use cash as much as possible, as if that will actually turn the tide and change things. Because you know what? You're not going to get people to get off the grid. It's not going to happen. People are not going to go out without their Wi-Fi. They're not going to move forward, not using the internet, or credit cards. It's not going to happen, And this is a common theme among those high-paid so-called scholars in the conspiracy theory arena who tour the world to pack stadiums and making these speeches, because what they do is just state the problem over and over again. Oh, so-and-so is a member of the Rothschilds family, the IMF is causing this problem, or the monetary system is the problem, but they never offer concrete solutions. And what I saw with the interview with Max Igan was the discussion of, well, Trump is a wild card. The reality is it doesn't matter if he's a wild card. The issue is that we're dealing with a two-party system. The deck is stacked against us. The moment the elections began, the American population lost. Because when you're dealing with two choices only, which is what you have, both choices are you got bad and worse. This is the whole idea behind the Hegelian dialectic. You're polarized, and no matter which way you turn, left or right, you're going to catch hell. So he didn't speak on that. But you say, oh, Trump's a wild card. Listen, and I've said this before in other videos, and I'm passionate about this. To get to that level of office, you have to demonstrate that you have no empathy, that you can commit mass murder and not blink an eye. And I say this over and over again. Those who win the presidency of the United States are somehow genetically engineered not to feel sympathy. Because you cannot have an attack of morality as the leader of the free world. Because you're going to be drone bombing people. You know what the situation is in the Middle East, and that innocent people are going to die. So how do you deal with that? You don't deal with that as a human being. You won't sleep at night. As it stands now, we send our vets to war, and they come back with post-traumatic stress disorder. And they can't cope with what they've seen and what they've done. Now imagine you, one person alone, who has his finger on the button or can launch missiles, are killing men, women, and children in these third world countries. How do you deal with that? And then after your term is over, you go and write a book and do a book tour, and you're all happy and smiling and making money. That is not a normal human being. No normal human being can do something after committing mass murder like that. So anyway, going back to my point about these so-called scholars and gurus who go out there making videos, get all these subscribers, who claim that they're giving you good advice when they're giving you crap. They're giving you crap. You know what? I always turn to our ancient ancestors because I've said this, that the timeline has been disrupted. We're not, the Illuminati, the ruling elite, is not trying to dumb down society. Society is already dumbed down. We're stupid. We're just plain stupid already. We're just going to a new level of uber stupid, And, the one thing that none of these guys talk about is that if you want to talk New World Order, 1984, a brave new world, if you want to talk about this horrific future that's supposed to come, and it's already here, there is no future, bad future we're going to, because it's here. You need to start looking at the indigenous people of color and what the genocide that they have gone through, all right? And I just want to, let me read a little bit to you so we can put this in perspective, all right? Because Max Igan talked about how Israel was bombing and killing people in Palestine, and how the news is not really covering this, and these people are innocent. And it's true, that's absolutely true. But let's look at the numbers, and let's look at what's going on. And this ties back to many things now, I'll get to that. All right, let's look at the Native Americans in this country. Where are they? 100 million were exterminated. 100 million. The Aborigines of Australia, what happened? There were originally 250,000 of them. Now we're down to about 60,000. Look at what King Leopold did. King Leopold III of Belgium in the Congo slaughtered 8 million African people. 8 million. All right. Now I haven't gotten into like Haiti and Brazil, but let me just talk a little bit about something else. The transatlantic slave trade, which bought the African people here as slaves. How many died? 100 million Africans lost their life. Men, women, and children, okay? Now, we're not talking about the devastation that like the World Bank and IMF, all these institutions have done to Africa. For one, we could talk about the spreading of AIDS in Africa. Whether you believe or not that AIDS was created, manufactured, synthetic, it's not the issue, because it was allowed to spread in Africa. And the question has to become, if it started in New York, how did it get to Africa? Okay. Starvation, poverty, the endless wars that go on in Africa, how the major corporations have carved up Africa and are raping it of its natural resources. We haven't even gotten to that yet. All right. So let's put this more into perspective. Let's go to some numbers. All right. Now, in Portuguese America, this is Brazil. The amount of African people brought there to work as slaves, 38.5%. British America, 18.4%. Spanish Empire, 17.5%. French America is 13.6%. And this is going for the time period, of 1519 to 1867, all right? English America is 3.25. Did I say British North America? 6.45%. Dutch West Indies, 2%. Danish West Indies, 0.3%. All right, so what does that mean in terms of actual numbers? So let's look at the numbers. British North America, that means that 500,000 Africans was brought there to be slaves. 500,000. Spanish America, 2.5 million. British Caribbean, 2 million. French Caribbean, 1.6 million. Dutch Caribbean, 500,000. Danish Caribbean, 28,000. Brazil, 4 million. 4 million African people were expatriatized, taken from Africa, and brought to Brazil to be slaves. The women were raped. The children, from the time they can walk, was forced to do work. and go on to the old world, the number is 200,000. And to this present day, not one president has proposed reparations for this global Holocaust. Not one president. Now, how does this tie into what I was saying before? To date, no organization such as the American Psychological Association has coined a phrase or labeled this aggression toward people of melanin complexion as a disorder. They have not addressed this issue. We call it racism, and then they want to say, well, you know, Hispanic, Chinese, Asian, Black people can be racist, knowing that they have no position of power, influence, or authority. That the people that are in positions of power are the ones that have not only instituted racism, but have shown aggression to the point of murdering and raping and colonizing the native population's countries. And we have yet to look at that as the key problem of the 20th century and 21st century. We have not even addressed that. The United Nations said that America has committed war crimes, not war crimes, but have violated human rights of African Americans. But they're an institution with no teeth, so no one's listening to them. All right. So what I'm saying is this, and let's take this further. As I said, there has been no organization which has classified this aggression as a pathological disorder, which it is. And it needs to be dealt with, addressed, and find out how did it happen. Where is it coming from? What is it? Is it a virus? Of course it is. You know, and what does this mean for the population of the planet that is of hue, melanated complexion? Now, what is melanin? Melanin allows you to survive in a hot climate. All right. So those who are without melanin, and we can say white people, we know, evolved or adapted in a colder climate, whereas Black people, African people, adapted to a hot tropical environment. All right. And we know that the main continent, one massive continent called Pangaea, and then we know from there life spreading outward. And then we went through ice ages and things of that nature, right? So, but here's the point. When we look at all those people on the planet of melanin complexion, Indian, Chinese, Africans, they are predominantly right brain, meaning they use the right side of the brain. When we look at people who are white from Europe, they are predominantly left brain. Left brain is segregative. It looks at facts. It looks at names and definitions. And whereas the right brain is it's more in terms of looking at how things connect. Okay, and it is a type of a synthesis thinking. All right, and it's always looking to see how things connect. And this is why. Again, as I pointed out in the previous video, when you had the Egyptologists go to Egypt, they couldn't find in Egyptian civilization and culture that they separated subjects into math, science, reading, or whatever. It was all mixed as one and told through and taught through metaphors, such as water is a symbolization of the female principle of fluidity, and so forth. So. And then they went further using iconography, such as the metameta or the hieroglyphics. All right. Now, going back to what I was saying about these so-called scholars, and I'm not saying you shouldn't watch their videos. Go ahead and watch their videos, but understand that unfortunately they don't have an understanding of the problem that we're facing in today's modern world. Now, if you start talking about racism is the problem, the 5G grid, the artificial intelligence is coming online, or we talk about the Illuminati is the problem, or the Matrix is the problem, then you're wrong. That is not the problem. You're wrong. That is the inevitable consequence or the effect of the cause of the problem. You got to look at the core issue that's going on and stop looking at the effect. The effect that we're seeing is that you have sexism, you have racism, you have party factions, and you have redefining things, coming up with these nomenclatures, coming up with these divisions and splitting hairs and convoluting issues and making things more complex, coming up with transgenderism, transhumanism, you know, and it goes on forever and ever and ever. Now there are not just 2 genders, there are 103 genders, you know. It gets ridiculous. And the reason for that, because the core of the problem lies in this. It started, well, it actually didn't start, but we can trace it back to the Roman Emperor Constantine in 325 AD, when he rewrote the Bible and took us from a type of a moon cult to a stellar cult, or you could say moon cult, to a solar cult, meaning that the divine feminine was no longer worshipped, but now the masculine principle was worshipped. What does that mean? That means they took us from a right brain, which is integrated brain thinking, to a polarized left brain way of thinking. So when that happened, what did you give birth to? You gave birth to the splitting of church and state. You gave birth to one subject is now multiple subjects. Now you're going to study history. Now you're going to study mathematics. Now you're going to study science. Now you're going to study art. Now you're going to study music. Now you're going to study, you know, once they were all one, now things have become separate. Now, what does the left brain do? Left brain is very factual. It creates names and definitions. So it starts naming things. It starts defining things. It starts creating categories for things. You are white. You are black. You are Asian. And it goes on and on. It splits hairs and just gets ridiculous. We are living in on a planet, in a world where the left brain has gone crazy. And this is the meaning of the Egyptian tale of Asar and Aset. Asar, the king, the ruler, was killed and taken off his throne by his evil brother Set, which represented the left brain and also the animal nature within us. So let's take this a bit deeper. Not only are we ruled by the left brain, but we're ruled by the reptilian division of the brain as well, the left and the reptilian division. So this is where you get your thirst for power, because in Europe, there's the left brain and the reptilian brain thinks in terms of a hierarchy of power. Very important. This is why the European view of God is to fear God, that God is powerful, that God can destroy you, so you must fear him, versus the African perspective is not power hierarchical. It is more of, when you're looking at communal, collective, cooperative. Like the perfect example of this would be King Arthur in Knights of the Round Table, when he said he wanted a round table because we're all equal. And that round is an occult symbolization. And so now I want to take this a bit further and understand where I'm going. And this is not meant to say that one race is better than the other, because we're talking about the intelligence, the divine intelligence, which creates life forms to survive on this planet. So it's not, no life form is better than the other. Everything has its function and its purpose. This is why African people created and studied cosmologics, because cosmologics assigns a value and a place for everything, because those pieces support and sustain the whole. And without those pieces, the whole could not function. You know, every animal on this planet serves a function for the earth to sustain the ecosystem. What function do we serve? We are the vessel by which God has his consciousness within us to experience itself, okay? So nothing is superfluous, is created. There's nothing extra created that's not needed. If you're here for a purpose, all right? So going further and understanding that we're all of these scholars and guys who make all this money touring the world, just regurgitating information, just talking about the problem, never a solution, don't even understand the problem, all right? And the problem is that If you do not have what these indigenous cultures created, you will never free yourself and liberate yourself, and that is culture. That is a way of life that takes into account a holistic perspective, meaning you're thinking through the right brain, integrated brain thinking. If you're not doing that, then you're engaged in something like the Hegelian dialectic, and you're forever going to be polarized in thinking. This is why you have people now studying the Indian Techalama, where you can hold two negative, a positive and a negative perspective, hold them with equal value, or hold two positive truths, two truths, and know that they both apply. When people say, well, how can two things be true? You know, just as in the Kemetic tradition, ma'at, you have ma'ati, the true truths, the subjective truth and the objective truth. All right, or you'll have the two truths and the two negatives, and you hold and meditate on those, and all are equally valued. And then you allow yourself to accept those ideas without judgment. But Western thinking is forever polarized in good, bad, Democrat, Republican, left wing, right wing. And they do this on purpose, which is why the majority of people on this planet caught up in that type of left brain thinking, you know, we're psychopaths. We can't think correctly. And this is why when you see modern pharmacy, the pharmaceutical industry that comes out with drugs, because it's very left brain, and you read the adverse side effects, most of which are deadly, can kill you. That's because in solving one problem, the left brain creates another problem. And you know the old saying, you can't solve a problem using the same mindset that created it. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to look at something, analyze it from the same perspective that created the damn problem, the left brain. And what you don't understand is the reason why these indigenous societies and people had a type of close-knit culture and had rituals and things of that nature, because that was right brain, and those rituals instilled morality within you. Now let's talk about the morality issue and why predominantly most white people are left brain and predominantly most black people are right brain or integrated brain thinkers, okay? When you are adapting to a cold climate, it is harsh. Food is scarce. So you have to go into survival mode. So what does that mean? Your morality, your right brain, your frontal lobe become disabled. The body does this. It's disabled because you need to start thinking individually. You need to start thinking in terms of self-preservation. And they have done studies on this, and they've shown that people on the brink of starvation are at they in other words, lose their mind. That they're just focused on eating, and you know, and it's to the point of where they will steal, they will murder for food, and that is a survival instinct because the divine intelligence has us adapt and disables that morality aspect, so that the physical body, so that you can survive. There's no need for the morality aspect, the mammalian brain, or whatever you want to coin it. You know, there's no need for that. What there is a need for is a more left brain thinking, which is individualistic, and reptilian brain, which is primitive, animal, what the Egyptians call Sahu self, to go out there and get food. Now, in a tropical environment where you will have dark-skinned people of melanated complexion, you then work to the opposite, which is the right brain. And the right brain looks at things in terms of collective and communal cooperation. Therefore, morality is allowed to thrive and develop within the brain. All right. And now, I'm not saying, let's get this straight, that white people are immoral and black people are more moral. No, we're all moral. But when we look at things in terms of the focus and the polarization of energy in a certain hemisphere, White people are focused more on individualistic, segregative, logical, left-brain thinking, while African people are focused on synthesis thinking, collective, cooperative, communal thinking, and focusing on the developing morality to its highest degree. Because in that tropical environment where food is plentiful, there is a need, and you can develop to a high moral attitude because there's no scarcity. The instinctive functions won't kick in and get into survival mode. I hope I kind of fleshed this out properly for you, all right? So what we see in today's world is white people acting out of a congregative thought process, which means that congregative thinking is it combines things based on external components, looking at the external and categorizing them: white people, black people, Asian people. That's how they think, you know? Whereas African people and black people look at things from a synthesis perspective, which is tying things externally that are unrelated externally through abstractions. That's how African people and Native Americans can say we are all part of the Great Spirit, that we are really consciousness. Whereas Western society looks at things in terms of concrete, the body, the physical, the race. You know, they can't get out of that thinking. So going back to what I was saying, what is the prime directive? What is the problem that we're facing today that needs to be cured? Not racism, not the ruling elite, not the oligarchy, not the matrix. It is dealing with this left brain that's gone awry. We have to start looking at how do we become more integrated brain thinkers and say that is the problem with the world today, that it's so focused on left brain thinking that we're destroying our civilization. If you go to the modern universities, at the top most prestigious university, Yale, Harvard, they all operate from the same erroneous thought process, which is left brain. And what does left brain do? It says, right brain is nothing. All the right brain is good for when you dream. Left brain learns by rote, by imitation. The left brain is not innovative. It can't come up with new ideas or new paradigms. It operates based on a precedent. So if it hasn't been established before, the left brain doesn't do that. The right brain is innovative. The left brain is fluid. I'm sorry, the right brain is fluid. The right brain is what we would call the Tao, or the way, in conjunction with Tha, or Tahuti, because truth is a relative subject. It is not an absolute, meaning that to understand how to apply the law, the truth of how to apply the law depends on the circumstances. You can't take a law that's been written in stone and just say it applies to all situations. That is ridiculousness. This is why the great Chinese sages came up with the Tao, the way, understanding how one must adapt and change the I Ching, the Book of Changes, to the way that things are presently. But because the left brain is so messed up, you go to a Christian church or a Catholic church, and they have you read from a book that is ancient and old, and still think that information should apply to every situation that's going on today. That again is left brain. That's insanity gone crazy. You have to be more fluid and dynamic in your thinking to understand the truth of the matter. Ma'at says to understand truth, you have to live life. Because it's contextual, it's relational, the relationship. All right, so I wanted to put that forth so we understand, number one, the problem. So how do we like institute this, deal with this? We have to get back to the ancient teachings and get back into ancient culture, rituals, practices that instill within the right brain the right way to do things in life. Because I don't care, I can stand on a podium and talk about the problem, even talk about the solution, but I'm talking to the left brain, which is not the seat of power. What controls you in your everyday activity is your right brain, the subconscious mind. If I can learn to program your subconscious mind, then you will do the correct actions. You will think the correct things. This is why we have things that are such as powerful as hypnosis, hypnotherapy, that the modern day institutions refuse to accept because they know it's valid. So me talking to you in this verbal discourse and telling you about, oh, you know what, all these ruling families are related, and you know, and this and that and that and this, yeah, it's intellectually exciting and stimulating, but it does nothing to change the masses of the population of this planet. This is why the elite uses symbolism. They use sigils, they use black magic, they use programming to control the population while we're just talking about facts and numbers. It doesn't work. We're not combating it correctly. You got to deal with the subconscious mind, which is the motivating factor that pushes people into action. You know that you shouldn't be smoking, right? But logically, you know you shouldn't be smoking, but that's the left brain. But emotionally, it has become a habit and buried in the subconscious mind, which is why you crave that cigarette, and it's also a chemical, biological thing. But we have to understand how these things work. And through programming, or our ancient culture said through trance meditation, we then tune into the collective consciousness to change the thinking and change the paradigm. We're not going to do that by creating interesting videos or forever overanalyzing the problem or recommending that we get off the grid. It's not going to happen that way. The change is not going to happen that way. And we've done a great job on this planet of vilifying those who are innocent, those whose cultures, if we had allowed to flourish, could have changed the world. But we don't want to talk about that, because every time somebody wants to talk about the future, A Brave New World, 1984, the New World Order, whenever we want to talk about the future, we don't ever want to talk about what the Aborigines went through, what the Native Americans went through, what the Africans went through. Because that was worse than anything, and that has already happened. So for them, this future has already arrived. And you're talking about like it's coming. No, it's a selfish act, because all you're thinking about is yourself. You're not looking at the totality of the planet and who else is on the planet. You know what I mean? So when you can't say clearly and definitively, when they ask you if Trump is a racist, if you can't say yes definitively, then you don't understand the problem, then you're not a scholar, and you need to go back and reevaluate what you're doing. And if you think by talking to people, by getting them to be informed, equates to action, then you're sadly mistaken. You're sadly mistaken. Because I'm telling you, we know that the Aborigines were wiped out in Australia. We know the Native Americans were almost extinct, taken off this planet. We know that. But how many people are actually doing anything about it? How many people are standing up and saying, you know what? This is never going to happen again? No, nobody's doing that. You know, it's because it hasn't reached the point within us in the right brain to cause us to move emotionally, to get up off our asses to do something. So I'm just tired of these so-called scholars. I'm not picking anyone, but they're all guilty. David Icke, all these guys are guilty of saying something that's so horrifically racist. And doesn't take into consideration the whole and looking at what certain people have gone through and what they're still going through. Melanin complexion, the ability of your skin to be a dark hue, is a beautiful survival technique. It indicates that you are part of the original people who are on this planet in the very beginning of the planet. You are the original people. So that you would have to equate that when you look at Adam and Eve, they had to be of dark skin complexion. But the society is so sick and twisted, is turned that around and said, no, Adam and Eve have to be white. That is an impossibility, given that if they existed in Pangea and in the tropic hot climate where the sun was glaring down on them, they had to be dark-skinned complexion to protect them from the sun and to absorb the energies of the sun. And they had to be of right brain, which is why we know the Egyptian Kemetic people were black Africans. They weren't white, as so many of these lying scholars want to pretend. And this is why when you get up into the academic institutions like Yale, Harvard, and you see what's wrong, like many Egyptologists know the truth that the ancient Egyptians were black Africans, but if they try to publish papers on this, they'll be ostracized, they won't get grants for research, and even worse, they'll be killed. So they don't write these papers, you know, and most of them who are putting out this propaganda are members of racist think tank organizations, and many of them are Freemasons. So when you look at Darwin, father of evolution, and then you look at people like Julian Huxley, who was you know, the brother of August Huxley, who created a Brave New World, and trying to warn people of, oh, this future is coming, but doesn't look back and see what happened to the Native Americans and talk about that. And Julian was a part of the eugenics movement. And if you trace back, you'll find that all these people, from George Orwell, they were all tied to occult people, like Aleister Crowley. You know, you see, like, you know, like I said, the eugenics movement with Julian Huxley. You can trace that back to Margaret Sanger, who was in the eugenics movement, who had ties to the Nazis in Germany. And we know that through Operation Paperclip, that many of the scientists and the important individuals were granted sanctuary, brought here to the United States and by the Vatican, and then allowed to work in the Republican Party, in the government. So going back to saying, is Trump racist? Is the Republican Party racist? Well, yes, it is, because you've had a Nazi presence in there from the very beginning. This is, and they are dead set on depopulating the planet through the eugenics movement, which is still going and flourishing. Yeah, Margaret Sanger is gone, but her work still lives on. Because if you know, with her abortion clinics, and because if you look at the statistics of African American women, there's a high abortion rate with them. And one of the things that Margaret Sanger did was that she appealed to the black pastors to help support the effort to abort young African American babies by setting up these abortion clinics in predominantly low-income neighborhoods. Anyway, I could go on and talk a little about this, but what I'm saying is this. You must understand the problem, and you must understand the solution to the problem, that is not about giving speech, lectures, and further overanalyzing the situation. You got to get deeper than that. You have to identify and not be afraid to stand up and say, this is the issue. We have, and I know the truth hurts, you know, I know the truth hurts, because not right now you have this whole thing where white men feel like they're being attacked. But well, you know what? Let me just say it this way. During Jim Crow, during slavery, African American men have been attacked, castrated, lynched, murdered, their families, their women raped, their families broken up and sold in slavery. So if you are getting some words that hurt your feelings, I'm sorry. Man up and deal with it and hold yourself accountable for what has happened to this in history. Because this country's history is bloody, and we still have not solved the problems or instituted justice for those who have been done wrong. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos. And again, I am not saying that you shouldn't watch these guys' videos. I watch their videos all the time. There's always something to learn from the videos, and I'm sure that, you know, David Icke and Max Igan, they're sincere in their efforts. I really believe they're sincere, but I also think they're covering up the truth to some degree because the truth hurts. So anyway, again, this is Kasakma Kaparu. Subscribe to this channel. Until my next broadcast, Amin Ra.